back to the Referral Mastery course. Good to be with you again. As a recap, I want to just have a quick look at the apple tree diagram just to remind you where we were in our previous session. And as you're going to see at the end of every session now, there are going to be very clear steps to mastery or pieces of homework that you need to go and do to continually build the next block of the system into your business. So please do keep up with the homework. All right, so the apple tree diagram, as you see it on your screen, the apples represent repeat and referral business. And in order to get repeats and referrals, you need a group of people, because people give us repeats and referrals. And that group of people we're going to call a database. Once your database is organized, you need to start communicating with that database. And that communication has to have multiple touch types. So on the left-hand side, the sunshine, that represents written communication. And I'm going to be teaching you 7 different written communication tools we're going to use to communicate with the people on our database. But that has to be combined with personal contact. You can't just send people stuff. You've got to follow up with, for example, a phone call. And so on the right-hand side corresponds to personal contact. And there are a number of different personal contact techniques that I'm going to be teaching you. Some one-on-one, some group. Then we looked at the little guy walking up his ladder to go and get the apples. You can have very ripe apples. You can have repeat and referral business, people who are willing to refer you, and yet they don't give you the referrals, or they go and use another agent simply because you don't climb up your little ladder, so to speak, and go and get those referrals from them. Now that's what the dialogues are designed to do. When you're having contact with your advocates, as we're going to call them, you're going to be using certain dialogues that we know 100% work really well. So there are 6 dialogues that I'm going to teach you through the course of this program. And then once you've harvested a new client by repeat or referral business, you need to provide exceptional service to that client, and that's what the little fragile container represents, is your service excellence. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at your database and how to organize a database. And what I'm going to do is get you to fill in the 4 steps that we're going to take to organize your database. We're going to look at the first 3 of them today, and then in our next session we'll look at the 4th one separately. But let's write them down now so you know where we're going. The first one is to build. Build is basically to make a list. Make a list of everyone you know. So number 1 is build. Number 2 is sort. Number 3 is capture. And then number 4 is prime. So those are the 4 steps you take to organize a database. Build, sort, capture, prime. And as I say, we're going to look at build, sort, and capture today. So let's begin with looking at building the database. Building the database. One of the most fruitful exercises you will ever do in your business is to make a written list of everyone you know personally. Now, I'm not being dramatic when I say to you, this is one of the most powerful exercises you will ever do in your business. And I'm amazed by how many real estate agents have never done this exercise. So as you're sitting there watching this, can I ask you, have you ever sat down and racked your brain and gone through old files of past clients and worked through your Instagram friends and Facebook friends and your LinkedIn circle and made a single list of every human being on the planet that if you were to phone them and say your first and surname, hey, it's Steve Johnston speaking, they would know who they were talking to. You know, these don't have to be close friends. This is quite a big group of people. And for a lot of people, this will be a couple of thousand people who you've had contact with in some way or another. For some, it'll be even more than that. Have you ever done that? Well, this is the very first step you're going to take as we head towards working by referral. You need to make a list of every single person on the planet that you know, that if you said your first and surname, they would kind of know who they were talking to. Okay, when you make your list, make sure you include the following 5 groups of people. Who are all my current clients? Who are the buyers that I'm currently working with in some way, shape, or form, or sellers that I'm currently working with? Then the second one is past clients. Now, I don't know if you are willing to admit, like a lot of us who've been in business for a while, there are potentially clients you've worked with in the past that maybe you have not kept in touch with as you should have. One of my top agents, his name is Brad Neal. He works in Johannesburg, in a very wealthy area of the country in northern South Africa. And Brad was admitting on one of our mastermind groups this morning that a past client of his, a certain lady who owns properties in Johannesburg, has just listed her home with another agent. And he was mature enough to say to us, as he was doing his little check-in with our mastermind, by admitting that it was his own fault. He said, I have to get better at keeping in touch with my past clients, and I've actually helped him now with some of the systems I'm going to be teaching you to keep in touch with his past clients better. And he said, if I had just done a better job of building my relationship with that lady, she would have used me because there was no ill feeling. In fact, I gave her a great service in the past, but he just hadn't kept in touch. Well, I don't know what it's going to take for you to get all the lists of names of all of your past clients for the last, let's say, 5 years. Maybe you've got to go through your calendar, scroll back. Maybe you've got files, hard copy files of all of your old transactions. I don't know what you're going to have to do, but you need to find the names and contact details of all your past clients. The third category is allied service providers. What is an allied service? Well, these are services that are allied to the real estate service that you provide. They're allied within a property transaction. So who are other business owners that also benefit from the purchase or sale of property? Well, attorneys would be a good example. Accountants, CPAs, garden maintenance people, security companies, pool maintenance people. And once you get the lid off the creativity, man, there are so many businesses that benefit from the buying and selling of property. All of those business owners that you know need to go on your list, because I'm going to teach you a separate strategy that we're going to use with allied service providers, where you can begin supporting each other's businesses in a more formal way with referrals. Then personal contacts is the fourth one. That's just your personal sphere of influence. So that's people you know from family, close people like that, family members, or friends, or people you know from church or from gym or your book club or your paddle or pickleball club or whatever the case may be. So just your personal sphere of influence. And then the last category, and this is often overlooked by estate agents, although I must admit, having come to EXP, the EXP culture is incredibly, refreshingly collaborative. And I hope you found that in your journey at EXP, that EXP agents really do work well together. And so that's the other category, is other estate agents. You can get so much business from other real estate agents if you just build strong relationships and you keep in touch with them. Okay, so make sure you've got those 5 categories of people on your list and make as big a list as you possibly can. I would say that you need to at least get 500 names on that list. If you don't have 500 names on that list, you haven't done the exercise properly. You could probably get a couple of thousand names on that list. When you're making your list, do not prejudge. I am not asking you to make a list of the people that you think will be your advocates or your referral sources. That's not what we're doing here. This is a brainstorming exercise. Even if you think of a name of a past client and you think to yourself, Stephen, there is no way I am ever going to, in fact, if I see that guy coming, I cross over to the other side of the street. I do not want to see him. He was an absolutely ghastly man to deal with. That's fine. Just put his name on the list. What you're going to end up doing is deleting the name, because that's one of the steps we're going to take later. But when you put his name on the list, what's going to happen is his name is going to remind you of another name. You're going to suddenly remember his next door neighbor who used to look over the wall at you and used to look across at him and used to like make eyes at each other when this guy was like losing his temper or something, and you'd both shake your heads together, and you got to know the neighbor, and he was actually a pretty good guy. Put the neighbor's name on the list. That's what's going to happen. It's a brainstorming exercise. As I need you to pretend you're going to get $10 cash for every name you get on the list. Every name you get $10. That's how I want you to approach it. Okay, once you have built your list, the next step is to sort the list. So let's talk about sorting the database, because there's a few important principles here. One of the most important lessons to learn is how to prioritize your relationships. How to prioritize your relationships. This is not potentially, it's not a very popular thought, or maybe it's not a very pleasing thought to you, that we would prioritize the importance of some people over others, and, like some people are more important than others. And we're not making any kind of, fundamental claims about people's worth. Of course, everybody, in my view, is made in the image of God. We all need to be treated the same. But as far as your business is concerned, there are certain people that warrant more attention than others. Have you ever flown economy class, or as you Americans call it, coach, where they march you through business class in order to get to coach at the back? And it's like it's like the walk of shame. You hang your head and you feel like apologizing to all the people there that are busy sipping their champagne, watching you, poor beggar, as you walk past. And you want to apologize. I'm so sorry. I've meant to be more successful, but I really have tried. But congratulations to you. You've definitely been very successful. You want to sort of give the speech as you walk past. Well, businesses like airlines have absolutely no problem prioritizing their relationships, because they know it's good for business. So that's what I'm going to recommend you do. And the reason you need to prioritize your relationships is because the majority of your referrals will come from relatively few people. That is a very key and important insight into working by referral. You do not need a huge database of 5,000 or 10,000 people that you're keeping in touch with in order to work by referral. Now, as you're going to see, I am going to teach you to have a B list behind your advocates that is 5, 10, 15, 20,000 people if you can get it that big. Wonderful. But the primary source of your referrals is going to come from the people we call your advocates, or your A list, and that's 100 to 300 people. Your goal is to have a responsive database. And so once your database is built, you must then sort it. Your goal is not primarily to have a big database. Yes, if your B list can grow big and you've got 1,000 people, 5,000 people getting your newsletter every month, wonderful, that's great. It does serve some purpose. But our primary goal in working by referral is not to have a big database, it's to have a responsive database. The kind of database where when you send an email, instead of having a 20% open rate and a 2% click-through rate, you have a 70% open rate and a 50% click-through rate. Because these are people that are used to talking to you. They know you're going to be phoning or visiting them soon. They have a relationship with you, so they will read your emails. That's the point here. We want a responsive database. That is worth its weight in gold. It takes some courage and some faith in the system, but understand that more focus and attention on fewer people will produce incredible results for your business. More focus on fewer people. That's almost the diametric opposite of how real estate has been taught for the last 60, 70 years. The marketing techniques that we've been taught having got into real estate were geographic farming, lots of cold calling, lots of direct mail. You blanket your area, maybe some big public branding. It's trying to get the attention in a very low or no relationship environment of 10,000 people. We just want to get everyone's attention. Whereas what I'm teaching is diametrically opposite to that. We're saying focus your attention on a relatively small group, 100 to 300 people, but build very intentional, deep relationships of trust with those people, and you will get 10 times the number of business doing it that way than you will trying to get everyone's attention. Now, fortunately, with modern technology like bulk email, you can actually do both at the same time, which is what I'm going to be teaching you, but the small group is the most important. So now we're going to start talking about actually how to sort your database. How to sort your database. Well, having made your list, your next step is to sort your database into 3 main categories: A's, B's, and D's. A's stand for advocates, B stands for your big list, and D stand for people to be deleted off your list. That's going to be the ghastly man that you never want to talk about again. So let's start with your advocates. these are the people most likely to use you themselves or refer you to others. Shoot for 100 to 300 advocates. Now, 300 is ideal. This is what we're actually going for. Long term, you want 300 people on your advocate list, and you're going to implement our whole multi-pronged approach of building relationships with these people. You can start with 100 if that's all you can get in the beginning. So 100 to 300 advocates. Now, how do you discern who are the people most likely to either use you themselves or refer you? Well, I've got 3 questions that are going to be helpful. And let me just stop at this point and make this point to you. It doesn't matter where these people live. I've had agents through the years often ask me, if they don't live in my area, like, can they be an advocate? And my answer is always the same. It doesn't matter what if they're renting and they don't own a property, or if they're young or they're old, it doesn't matter what the question is. The answer is always the same. Are these people one of the 300 most likely people in the world to either use you themselves or refer you to others? There may be someone that you had a great relationship with who lived in your area, who's moved to a foreign country. Let's say they've moved to Canada. But they still keep in touch because they've got an online business and a lot of their clients are still in your area. For example, that person would be a great person to keep in touch with because they still have a lot of contact with people in your area and so could refer people to you. So this is the important question. Who is most likely to be able to refer you or use you themselves? So question number 1 is, who are the people who are able to refer me to good prospects? You know, you might say, well, you know, I love my granny. My granny is 93 years old. She was like a mother to me. I absolutely love my granny. Is my granny an advocate? And my answer to that is, well, is your granny able to refer people to you who will be buying or selling property? You know, that's the important question here. It's not whether you love your granny or not. It's whether she's able to refer. And in the case of your granny, 93-year-old granny, maybe the answer is no. She won't be an advocate, no. Number 2, who is already close to knowing, liking, and trusting me? Part of what our system is designed to do is to move people along as quickly as we can, the know, like, trust continuum. So there's somewhere along this point, and you want to get them, let's go deeper, you want to get them from knowing you to quite liking you to trusting you. And there are people all along this continuum, and we're wanting them to get deeper. Who are the people who are already some way along this? So another way of saying that is, who have you got a pretty good relationship with at the moment? That's the second question to ask. The third question to ask is, who is personally aligned with my most deeply held values and convictions? And this is just a lifestyle issue. For me, if I'm going to be building my business by keeping in touch quite intensely with a pre-selected group of people, I want to work with the kind of people that I resonate with. I don't like spending time with people who use a lot of foul language. Now, that may be how you roll, and that's okay with you, and that's fine. But for me, I don't like foul language, and I don't like spending time with people who use foul language, and especially if it's blasphemy, I can't stand that. I don't want to spend time with people like that, and so, you know what? They're not going to tick that box for me. I want to spend my life with a community of people who hold my most deeply held convictions together with me. Those are the kind of people that I feel comfortable with. I think there's some wisdom in that. If you did math in school, you may remember this diagram, which is called a Venn diagram. It's where you've got circles that overlap in part. And this is a great way of illustrating who your advocates are. Where you've got these 3 questions that intersect, in other words, someone ticks all 3 boxes. They are able to refer good prospects to you. They are already close to knowing, like, and trusting you. And they are aligned with your most deeply held values and convictions. If somebody ticks all 3 boxes, that is 100% one of your advocates. Now, if you do that exercise when you sort your database and you come out with, say, 20 or 30 or 40 advocates the first time you sort the list, go through the list again and be a little bit more generous with your judgments and say, okay, let's include that person, let's include that. Keep going until you have at least 100 advocates. And as I say, shoot for 300. So practically what this looks like is, I'm going to say later, you should probably build your initial list, the 2,000 names, you should probably build it on an Excel spreadsheet. and there's a reason for that I'll get to later. What you're going to do is you're going to go through the Excel spreadsheet line by line by line by line, and every time you come across someone that you think is an advocate, just highlight that cell yellow or something. Highlight it, highlight it, highlight it, and go through it, and keep going until you've got at least 100 advocates and shoot for 300. So practically that's what it looks like. All right, so that's your advocates. Now let's move on to the next category, which is your Bs, or your big list. Your B list or your Bs are people worth keeping in touch with. And here's the key: you want as many people as possible on your B list. You want as big a B list as possible. Why? Because the way we're going to keep in touch with our big B list is through a monthly newsletter. It's going to be an email that you send once a month, like a market report. We'll get into the content later, but because of the way bulk email works, you could have 20,000 names on that list, and it's just a click of a button once a month and it goes to everyone on the list. And so because of bulk email and how it works, you can build as big a B list as possible, and the more people you have on it, the better it is. Okay, you must have a monthly email newsletter that gets sent to everyone, advocates and Bs. So practically, again, what does it look like? You've gone through your spreadsheet, you've pulled out, say, 200 advocates out of your 2,000 names. There are 200 yellow highlighted names. Who's your B list? Everybody else is now your B list, except for your Ds. So this is the third category of person on the list. Who are Ds? People to be deleted from your database. People to be deleted from your database. And that's anyone that, as you're going through the spreadsheet sorting it, you come across a name and your stomach turns. And you think, oh, I can think of nothing worse than keeping in touch with that person. Just delete the row. Just delete them out the database. One of the most beautiful things about working by referral is you don't have to have communication or the ear of 10,000 people using the old school of marketing. You only need 100 to 300 advocates, and that's going to be enough for you to build an incredibly profitable business. You don't have to work with people you don't like. That's the wonderful thing about our strategy. All right, so that's sorting the database. The next step, once you've sorted the database, you've now got your spreadsheet, you've highlighted your advocates, everybody else is now a B, you are going to capture that database onto some kind of contact management system. Okay, so let's talk about capturing your database. Working proactively by referral is impossible without tracking your activities. This is where a good CRM system really helps. Now, as we think about this, you've probably kind of started to add this up in your mind already. If you've got 300 advocates and you're having to make phone calls to those advocates on a regular basis, and you're also having to send different kinds of written communication to them on a regular basis, there's going to come a point where you're not going to remember who you phoned in the last 4 weeks and who needs to be phoned in the next 4 weeks, and who you sent a handwritten note to, and when you had a conversation with Mrs. Jones a month ago, what did Mrs. Jones tell you? You've had 300 other conversations since you spoke to Mrs. Jones. You're never going to remember everything. You are going to have to record all of your touches with your advocates and keep notes on the conversations that you've had. That is impossible to do without a good system, and that's what a good CRM system is designed to do. After sorting your database, import or type your list into your CRM system, tag them as advocate or B list, together with any other tags which may be helpful categories later. Now, you understand how tagging works? A tag on a contact is a way later on that you can filter your list on your CRM system. Let's say you only want to send an email to potential buyers of a single suburb. Now, if you've tagged people as you've been adding them to your database that this is a potential buyer for, Banana Grove, then you can sort that list quickly in the tag column, you only want to see people who are buyers for Banana Grove, and boom, it'll take the 2,000 names and it'll spit out the 20 names that are the potential buyers, and then you can send just those 20 the latest listing in the area, for example. That's how tags work on a CRM system. So you need to figure out how to do that on your CRM, and when you import your initial list, make sure that the advocates are tagged as advocate and the B list are tagged as B list. Okay. All right, what do you need to do before our next session? Here are your steps to mastery. Number one, find out if there is a specific import template for your CRM system. For example, there may be an Excel file format that they give you that you need to import your contacts in. Most CRM systems allow you to bulk import your contacts into the CRM system when you first start using it, and normally it'll be from an Excel spreadsheet, and some of them might give you a template that you've got to use. So certain columns like title, first name, surname, email address, cell phone number. So just find out, whatever CRM system you're using, do they have an import template? And my suggestion to you in step number 2 here is to make as big a list of names as you can using that template. In other words, this is the build part of build, sort, capture, prime. This is making the big list of 2,000 names. Why not make the list right from the beginning using the template that your CRM system is going to use? That way, once you've sorted it and deleted those you don't want, then it's just a click of a button to import it into your CRM system. You don't have to do the work twice. So make your initial list on the Excel template that you're going to need to use. So that's step number 2, make your big list. At the very least, include first name, last name, mobile number, and email address. Then your third step to mastery is sorting the database. Now that you've made your big list, you're going to sort it into your 100 to 300 advocates, your B list, and then you're going to delete your Ds. So that's that thing where you highlight the little cells in a certain color, your advocates and your B list. And then number 4 is to capture or import your advocates and your B list into your CRM system. You got it? So number 1, find out if there's a template you're going to use. Number 2, make your big list. Number 3, sort the list down to advocates, Bs and Ds. And number 4, import that list into your CRM system. Now that takes us to the end of today's session. In our next session, we're going to pick up with the 4th step in organizing your database, which is to prime the database. This is an exercise where you're actually going to phone through all 300 advocates, or however many you got, and we're going to use the first of the dialogues that I'm going to teach you. And it's very exciting because I can tell you now, in that process, you are going to pick up a lot of leads. And we have seen this many times with the agents that have done this with us. And so in order to be ready for that next session, please make sure by the time you get there that you've got your database sorted out and it's been imported into your CRM system. All right, so God bless you. Enjoy the process, and I look forward to seeing you in our next session.